Claire Nelson, welcome to Sports Management Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you on the show. You are the managing director of the Netball Super League. So can you tell us a little bit about your role and NSL?
I don't know how I describe my role because it's very different every single day. And we are very much at the start of quite a significant journey. But the Netball Super League is the elite domestic competition for netball. For those people that maybe don't know what netball is, we are the most played team sport by women and girls here in the UK. So we're huge, and we're actually celebrating our 100th year as a sport. And we are hugely popular. We have over 3 million people playing the sport each year annually. We are predominantly female as well. So we always talk about being the one true women's sport, from grassroots and the netball courts right through to the boardrooms. We are really led by women and girls, and proud of that, unapologetically so. But the men and mixed game is growing at a huge pace as well. We have a hugely successful international team, the Vitality Roses, who compete on the world stage at the Commonwealth Games and the World Cup. I think we're second, third in the world at the moment, so hugely successful. And so the thread that ties the grassroots and the international game together is the Netball Super League. And the league has been running for almost 2 decades. But as we've seen with the rise of women's sport and the professionalization and commercialization of women's sport, we decided a few years ago that this was our time to really create our proposition that would enable us to fuel the sport forward. Because unlike other sports, women's sports that are built off the back of a men's game and largely a well-funded, well-established, strong infrastructure men's game, we don't have that. So for us, it's about building fandom and driving innovation, unlocking this kind of huge participation base and turning that into fans. And we started our professionalization journey a number of years ago in terms of kind of scoping out what the future looks like. But we relaunched last year on International Women's Day with some new clubs, new brand, new rules, new innovations, new events, new partners, new broadcast deal, all of our games, every round live, free to air across Sky Sports and BBC. We've been pushing ourselves ever since to continue to grow the game. So my role in all of that is as managing director is to lead it, but I'm very much part of a huge team. And I always think that I'm here to kind of unlock our potential, is to, when it gets really tough, because it is to keep reminding everybody of our purpose and our mission and how unique we are as a sport. There is nobody like us as a women's sport and as a sporting proposition, with those live events and that digital storytelling and the opportunity we have to engage new fans. But every day I'm either talking to commercial partners or I'm supporting our clubs, I'm meeting with our players and just really finding my way, because there's no blueprint for this. You know, for all of us, it's about work as a team, be really agile to respond to what's happening, but to always have our eye firmly on the future, because we've set out a roadmap for a 10-year journey. And we're really at the start of that. So it's a privilege to do this role. It's extremely challenging, but what a time to be working in women's sport and what a time to be working in netball.
Definitely. And I wonder if that's a blessing and a curse that you say that you are not like building off a men's sport, because I've talked a lot about women's soccer in specifically. And then what they have said is that they shouldn't do a copy paste of the men's version, but they should rather build their own product in different type of fan engagement and so forth. So as you said, maybe you don't have that to build off of, but on the other hand, you can build something unique for netball then.
100%. You say blessing and a curse. I always say it's our superpower and our greatest challenge. For us, we are absolutely masters of our own destiny. And we did turn down PE a number of years ago because we wanted to actually, you know, as much as it'd be amazing for someone to write me big checks and support our journey in that way, we knew that we were like, build and they will come. We know our sport, we know our people, so let's do this together. But there is no one who's done what we've done yet. We have different challenges in different ways, because people that participate in a sport, they do so for different drivers to what it means to be a fan. And so I wish we were asset owning. We had our own stadiums and arenas. I wish we had established fan bases. I wish we had broadcast deals and big sponsor deals that could fuel and fund us doing everything we want to do because we're not limited by ideas and potential and opportunity. And it's interesting because we're a very close community, the women's sport community. So I speak to my counterparts in football and cricket and rugby, and everyone's challenges are different and unique. And I look at football and think, oh my God, if only we had. But equally, they look at us and just think there's no politics. Like you are building your own product yourselves and trying new things. Like we're not limited by someone dictating what our sport should and shouldn't look like. And even just going back to what we did last year, we tried new rules. We're in control of our sport. We can try things and fail at them and redo them. It is a blessing. I wouldn't say it's a curse, but it definitely brings challenges, but that makes the rewards all the more sweeter when we realize them. And what we're bringing to the market is data and case studies and insight that no other sport can do, because this is truly building and innovating a women's sport from scratch, as it were. And that really excites me.
Yeah, I understand that. And you mentioned the relaunch here recently. So what are some like strategic changes or some initiatives that you're working with now after the relaunch?
Yeah, so we went through a tender process. So we did have a league that was in operation, and there were 10 clubs, 8 from England, 1 Wales, 1 Scotland. So because going back to the fact that there isn't a big pot of money at the centre that's driving this, we couldn't do, for example, the 100, where we just create all of our own clubs from scratch and build. We had to go out to tender and say we needed clubs who could commit to this 10-year journey. We talk about being transformational. So we are that with our product and our brand and our experience, but we have to be sustainable. And we've looked not just at our own sport and what's happened in netball leagues globally, but at other women's sports. So we had to go out to tender and say, okay, who can come on this journey with us? That brought with it changes, huge changes. Clubs didn't move forward with us that had been on this journey for a long time and had been successful, and they have huge fan bases. When you're playing sport, this is people's passion. Yes, I'm here to run the business of sport and to make the decisions that are right for the business of sport and to make sure that netball can grow and stand the test of time. But you're still impacting people's passion and their heroes and their emotional connections and where they feel safe and where they feel a sense of belonging. So to take that away was a really difficult position we found ourselves in. But with that, we brought new clubs in, and we've got female founded clubs. We're the only sport that have got women founding clubs and writing their own checks from the outset. We brought in a Premier League football team, Nottingham Forest. When we all look at Marinakis and what he's built with Olympiakos and a multi-sport model, bringing that into netball was something really new. We have new venues that we are playing from. It was very much about fewer, bigger, better. So how do we get into big arenas and create this experience that is more than a sporting fixture? Because that's what women want. That's what women and girls want. That's what new audiences want. When we're thinking about a female audience, they're not prescribed at the moment to being sports fans and investing time and money consistently week in, week out to a sporting experience. So how can we create those fan habits with something that feels value for money, that is competing against shopping and socializing and going to the cinema, the theatre, music? So we really looked at our venues. We've more than 50% of our games into big arenas, going to Wembley and so on. We also reduced our squad sizes because what we wanted to do with less clubs, it was very much around how do we drive greater competitiveness on court so that we've got real competition week in, week out. And that was about looking at how do we disperse talent and create more of an equalization around our talent. And so we looked at their pay. We looked at creating a very transparent salary banding and remuneration. We more than doubled the average pay. We increased the base pay by nearly 85%. So we were like, how do we disperse the talent? Have we got less, fewer, playing better, week in, week out? And then we introduced some rule innovations like the 2-point shot, which we have sponsored by Amex this year, the Amex Super Shot. So the last 5 minutes of every quarter, there is a super shot area within our shooting D, and that accounts for 2 points. It has thrown the game and the competition completely in the air in terms of creating jeopardy and to the wire games and unexpected results, because that's what fans want. There's a million other things that we introduced. We always said we weren't going to do things for the sake of it. It was all insight driven. It's all built around how do we engage fans? So the experience on the court and off it. But that kind of those core basics of the right clubs with the right players in the right competitive environment, playing in the right venues, that was where we started. And from there, we built the broadcaster live and the digital experience and saw some quite significant growth.
That's so interesting. And when you mentioned that you're competing against maybe the movies or a supermarket and other things, women are usually has the purchasing power in the family. What are some strategies to switch those priorities for the household, that maybe to go more to sporting events and then take less of something else?
Well, we have to create something that's compelling. We have to create something that people want to turn up to and want to come to it more than once. There's a couple of strategies here. We've got to get the product right, first and foremost. And we know that the majority of women in UK households have played netball, so they know it, they're familiar with it, they know the rules of it. And we know that there's a high participation base. So how do we convert that into fandom? Well, we need to get what it looks like, right? And I have to say, if you've never watched netball, you really should, because we have the best athletes in the world in our league. You know, there's 3 global domestic leagues, and we are up there as one of the best. So the game is exciting. The athletes are phenomenal. And then all the bits that we've done around it with live music and entertainment and fashion art, all of these things create this great experience. Then we need to tell people about it. And so that digital storytelling has been really important, because female fandom is built through female athletes, actually. We resonate with a different message. And again, that's where it's not the same as the men's game. It's not like, well, my dad supported, so I should. We are trying to bring something new. And it's a competitive marketplace, not just in sport, but for all those other things that I've already talked to. So for us, getting that content piece right, of one, showing what the sport looks like and making it go, that looks so exciting. Showing that fan experience, because where else can you go and have nearly 10,000 women and girls in an arena just letting loose and really getting excited about sport? But actually then it's the resonant piece. And that for us is, where do we talk to cultural issues or matters that only women and girls really understand? How do we tap into cultural trends and social impact? And that has been huge for us in terms of reaching new audiences. Our broadcast deal is really interesting as well. So we have 3 games by Sky Sports, 1 by BBC. These are available live and free to air across Sky Sports YouTube and iPlayer, because women are watching sport in a different way. The appointment to view, and if we think about women's lives, they are busy, they are taking up the mantle of everything that's required in a home and a household. So they're not going to sit at a specific time. And quite frankly, the slot we're going to get is going to be down the pecking order of football, rugby, golf, tennis, and everything else that's a bigger sport. So by making it available to watchers catch up, we have seen huge spikes in our viewing audience, because that's how women are consuming. We're very data driven. We're very insight driven. We're really trying to create a product and a property here that is so compelling that time in your diary, that precious time for yourself or away from your family or with your family, and that spend that we're fighting over becomes dedicated to our sport. Because when you do immerse yourself in it, you'll find your people. It's exciting, it's entertaining. And actually, it's a place right now where women need to be to feel safe and seen and able to be their own beautiful, powerful, authentic selves.
Yeah, that's really powerful and super interesting as well. And as you said, you're starting with a product, but also, of course, the Sky Sports and BBC broadcasting, which you need to get it out there as well. Something that's really interesting as well that you have led under your leadership is some strategic brand partnerships. So how are you thinking about that, and which companies and brands you want to partner with?
I mean, it's all we think about is commercial partnerships, because again, going back to it, we can't do this without those commercial deals. So our entire business model is get the product right to build the fandom, and then the fandom drives that commercial value. So our core revenue streams are ticket sales, sponsorship, and broadcast. And then obviously we have merchandise and retail, but it all builds off the back of fandom. And if we can show demand and we can show a uniqueness in the power of that audience demographic, then that drives our commercial value up, again, in a marketplace that's very busy and is very dominated by a few sports. For us, that thinking about who we work with, it's twofold. We want aligned brands who understand our journey and who can come with us on that journey and really help us to almost co-create product and our proposition is. Then it's how are we each adding value to one another? When we think about like the Amex Super Shot, and it was sponsored by Soft and Gentle last year, this is one of our most exciting branded products because everyone wants to see how many super shots are scored. But in the same breath, we've also created the community fund. And for every super shot that's scored, there will be money that goes into a fund that can go back to grassroots netball. So there's an experiential piece helping us to bring the product to life. There's that globalization piece that enables us to work with a partner and a brand that makes others go, who's netball? And then there's how are we giving back to the sport? And that's how we look at all of our partnerships. When you need money, it's really difficult to say no, but we also need to make sure that everybody we work with is aligned to particularly this partner journey because we're so young in it. And the sponsors that we bought on last year and our first year, like Superdrug Online Doctor, we got pictures of our players in high street stores of Superdrug, like one of the biggest brands in the UK. We really partnered on experiential programs and impact. We create health campaigns. Everything that we're doing enables us to lean into our USP as a women's sport, to be creative, to be purpose-led. And all of that enables us to go out to new partners and really evidence why working with us is different and is powerful. Because we might not have the same numbers as everybody else, but I always argue that a netball audience is exceptionally powerful. And the fact that we can try things and innovate, that's exciting to brands.
Definitely. And I feel like what we talked about, like finding the right partners and having a shared values and vision, because I think that at times when you just, some company sponsor and you say that this is sponsored by X and that's it, fans see right through that. Today, they want something more. And it seems like that's really what you have found there as well.
Absolutely. And because we're a small team servicing partners, it takes a lot of time. We want to be good partners to work with. It's far easier to retain than to recruit new. That gets so much easier when you're all on the same page, when you're all excited by what you're doing, where you build a personal relationship, that you want to try things, that you want to go on this journey. And I think what I'm proud of is that our partners are proud to work with us. They're proud of the sport. They're proud of the work that we do. And that's really important to us when we're building our portfolio of partnerships.
Definitely. We mentioned in the beginning here that you're leading this relaunch, and I'd like to talk about leadership a little bit. And you have reshaped both the brand and the culture for this league. So, how would you define your leadership style and what is important for you?
I think my leadership style is very much around inspiring people behind a vision. And I think that's what leadership essentially is anyway, isn't it? It's like we can see possibility when maybe others can't or feel scared to tread. But I need to inspire everyone behind a vision and get everyone to believe in it. Then it's about making sure that you have the right people around you who feel equipped and empowered to go and do their job. And that's where I always say I like to know what's going on. So I'm like little and often just, I know what's going on. Trust that it's okay, maybe challenge, throw some ideas. I'm a very ideas person. So people that work with me get lots of voice notes constantly. But I think that that's a good thing because I'm constantly creative and inspired and full of ideas and challenging myself and pushing us. I'm never going to clock in or out because I feel if I'm inspired myself and I'm passionate about and I still believe in it, then that is what the team, but also fans and players and clubs feed off of. I think my superpower has always been people and listening to people, especially when it's challenging, especially when that feedback feels difficult, but saying, okay, I hear you. Here's how we're going to solve it. And here's what we need to do. It is difficult because the way the Super League is set up is it is a subsidiary of England Netball. So we have a lot of shared resource while we're going on this journey. So, you've got people that have got huge portfolios of kind of areas of work that they need to deliver for multiple areas of the business. And I'm just one piece of that, but this is my world. It's the most important thing. So trying to kind of manage that and make sure that Super League is prioritized, but within the realms of we're a lean resource with a lot to deliver, it certainly provides its challenges. I would say I'm very visionary, but I like process in place and I like to just see what's happening, be able to hear from people, make sure that we're staying focused on our priorities. But I just love working with people that are full of potential, who are full of ideas. You don't need to know it all. You don't need to have figured it all out. You just need to be like, I get what we're trying to do here, and I think I can help make it happen. And I love feeling as equally inspired by the people who work with and for me and around me as I am conscious of my role in kind of leading and inspiring those. But you've got to be brave, got to be bold. This is not easy. And I have to be prepared to take all the tough stuff on the chin. And that's been hard. That's been hard in the last couple of years because this isn't easy and it's not been rosy. But again, that's my job. And I think how I handle those things is also what gives comfort and confidence to the team and people around me.
I love that. And you alluded to it a few times that there are some challenging times. So, what has been some of the more challenging things that you've been through in the NSL time?
I mean, I could go through a daily list. Some of the big ones was actually even just going through the tender process. That was extremely difficult. We didn't have a lot of time to do it. The blueprint, as I said, wasn't there. So we are working on insight. We have worked with consultants. We have spoken to clubs. We have spoken to other sports. But largely, we're kind of like, what do we think this needs to look like? And that process is also a deeply confidential process. So everyone's under NDAs and all you've got are players and fans and broadcasters and partners want to know what's happening. And you just are sitting behind closed doors. And I've said a number of times, I wish we'd had a documentary team following us through that. One day I'll write the memoirs because it was something like I've never experienced before. It was very intense over a relatively short period of time. It felt like forever at the time. But I think from start to finish, from kind of launching it to then contracting our new clubs, it was less than 9 months, but it was really intensive. It was very legal. You've got to do your due diligence. And the decisions that are made through that process are the ones that are then going to set the foundations for the future. So that was hard work for everything that sat behind the scenes, which I can't go into details about. But the next bit that was really difficult was then announcing our clubs. So the huge excitement for the future and what we were doing and what we were bringing, there was also disappointment and devastation to a number of fans where clubs who were well loved and very established wouldn't be coming with us on that journey. And the England netball structure of how our pathways are formed all had to be kind of re-engineered to fit with these new clubs. And that was really complex. And this is where you're dealing with members and participants and volunteers, hundreds of thousands of people impacted by these decisions. And a lot of people weren't happy with that, understandably so. So that was difficult. It was difficult to face the public response but to also go through that process, which took a long time. But we held fast. If you love netball, we know we're doing the right thing for our sport here. So trust the process, know that we care, and see the results of it. And that takes time because it takes time for those results to come into place. I would say probably actually it's only the last few months that we're starting, a year on from our relaunch, starting to feel like things are operating the way they should be. And I've worked really, really, really hard to create this collaborative, collective, integrated system of clubs and England netball staff and regional volunteers and members all working together to build this system, to have shared success and aims, to be one team, because that again is our power. And so we're starting to see that. But that was difficult when things don't go right, like streaming goes down. It's largely technical things, aren't there? And people kind of come at you. I love what I do, and it's very personal to me. So it's hard not to take those things personally. And I sometimes wish I had a thicker skin, but I actually like that I care. Maybe the day that I stop caring shows that I've sort of done my time here, because I want this to be right for our fans and players and clubs. I want to get it right. We might not have all the money, and I'm going to explain to everyone, about the parameters that we're operating in or the limitations that we sometimes have. But we should strive for excellence, and we should put people at the heart of all we do. So I think anytime that I've maybe felt that people have been disappointed in us, that's been difficult. But at the end of last season, and it was honestly exhausting, when I stopped and actually looked at what we did, it's tiny little sport, with big dreams and ambitions, with the budget and resource that we have, I was really bloody proud about ourselves. And it was exactly what we needed to go, keep going. Let's work smarter, take the insight and keep building. And I think that helped make the tough times easier. And you know what? If it was easy, everyone would be doing it and we would have solved the problems by now. Like, the scale of challenge that we're faced with is related to the scale of change and opportunity and transformation that we're trying to drive. So it's never going to be easy. And I'm a resilient woman who is able to ride those waves. But we're starting to see some of the bluer skies now, still early in our journey, and long may that continue.
I love that. And on that point, if we're looking now, you said now you start to see some blue sky or, seeing results. If you're looking 5, 10 years ahead, what does success look to you if you're at that point?
They're probably two quite different scenarios. So when I think about where we are now, in 5 years' time, because we are in build mode, I would like us to have foundations really in place, is that we've got strong clubs, strong partnerships, a long-term broadcast deal. We've got that infrastructure really fueling the game of pathway and regions. And it's just all the kind of unsexy stuff, but it's those things that will make us successful for the future. We're not figuring it out. We've got it in place. We've got well-paid athletes, happy and doing what they need to do full-time on court, if that's what they want to be as a full-time athlete, and that we've got well-resourced Super League and clubs, and that just we're in operational mode. So that in 10 years' time, we are the WNBA and then some, that we represent not just a sport that is exciting and thriving and in homes and households that people are turning up to watch, they're tuning in to watch, but it represents that uniqueness of the female fan experience largely. And again, I'm unapologetic for talking about the female fandom. I want it to be loved by all. I want us to be inclusive by all. And in 10 years' time, I'm pretty sure that we will see a men and mixed game somewhere in there. But that kind of the fashion, the music, that we're pushing the boundaries of what a sportainment experience looks like, how it's consumed, gamification, digital, how it's watched and experienced, that we are at the leading edge of that we are well funded to realize because we've got all the ideas now. As I said, it's just how we make them happen, that we are absolutely leading the way, because sport's exciting, but I think netball really represents the future of sport. And I don't think there's another sport at the moment. When you really look at our major events, you look at our grand final with nearly 10,000 full paying women and girls, largely fans in the O2, with that sports press, the music, the digital, the fan zone, the engagement, the on-court, the off-court, that level of action. There's nobody doing that like us. So that's really exciting, but we can only realize that if we get these foundations right. And I think giving us a good 5 years, maybe we will expand, drive more clubs in, we'll look at rules and innovations, but we will tweak it to make sure that we've got a machine that enables that. And of course, the thing for me that drives me is that we then use that platform to be the change the world needs. I'm very much around sport has the power to change lives. And right now, more than ever, change is needed. And I believe that starts with empowering and uplifting women and girls to be more confident, to close the gender gaps, to take out of the shadows all of the things that we endure or that we suppress or that limit us. And we create a really powerful, equal, fair, thriving, healthier society as a result of what our sport is and can be.
I love that. It's great to hear, and it will be so interesting to follow in the years to come. I told you before we hit record here also that I want to get to know your journey a little bit, and everyone who has been listening and watching thus far can see, the drive, the passion, and how invested you are in this. So, how did you get into the sports industry from the beginning, and how has your journey been up until this point?
I mean, this is a whole other podcast in itself, but I'll try and give you a potted history. I do always, when I talk about my career journey, I do start at the beginning because I think it's important to understand my kind of formative years and how they've shaped the woman that I am personally and professionally. But I grew up in a home and a household that was not happy. It was full of fear and bullying and abuse. And I am the eldest of three children, siblings, and I've got a younger sister and brother. But everything that made me and my personality, I was told that would limit me in life and was a bad thing. And anything that was kind of confident or strong or outspoken, no man will ever marry you like that. No man will ever hire you. And it was very much a cycle of control. But I played netball. And it's funny because it always annoys me when people say, well, you a netballer, is that why you do it? No, I love the business of sport and I love this sport. But I did play netball and I grew up around it. And when I was struggling in my school environment and my home environment, it was the only place I felt happy. It was the only place I felt good at something. And all those qualities that I were told were bad were leadership qualities. I was always the captain and I succeeded and I thrived. And I love what netball represents in terms of it's a full team sport. One person can't just take a ball and score. Everyone is involved. Everyone is needed, different body shapes, different backgrounds, different skills, but that's what makes the team. So that's where I started. But because of my home life, I went to university as far away from home as possible. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I did a politics degree because I just thought it looked quite interesting. And I, having left university with no clue what to do, but just knowing I can't go home, I fell into hospitality. And what I realized is that actually I have marketing skills, marketing and sales and general business skills. So I kind of talked my way into a marketing manager role in a bar. And within 3 months, I was given a company car aged, I think, 21, 22, and was looking after 20 sites across the UK and going in and problem solving. And so I had a really good career in hospitality, well paid and lots of fun and lots of partying. But at this time, I also started a family really young as well. So it was when I was actually pregnant with baby number 3 and very, very ill and just never seeing my children, I decided I needed to have a job where I could just come home every night. Like I missed first steps and first words. I just wasn't there. I had 3 corporate flats. I was working 80 hours a week and I wasn't seeing my kids. And I was silently enduring morning sickness and everything else. So I again hustled, talked my way into a job with Glasgow Life. Now, Glasgow Life looked after all of the sports and arts and entertainment provision for the city of Glasgow. I got a job as sports marketing manager, and it was 2, 3, 4 years before the Commonwealth Games was coming. And Glasgow is one of the biggest sporting cities, major event cities in the world. As much as I really did not like working for the public sector, it was just not for me. There was a lot of nice people, but a lot of just clock in, clock out and do the basics. Actually, what I got to work on, major new venues and sports events, and we had 35 gyms, 40,000 members, all of sport, major events. I really enjoyed that. And one of my jobs was to set up the Super League team, Glasgow Wildcats. So this was like 2008. My 3rd baby had just been born. And I remember back then saying, hold on, we should be putting on sport entertainment. And women have played netball, so they're going to be interested in this. And why don't we look at American sports and create a brand that's really cool? And, we want men to wear the hoodies as well as the girls. And what do we do at half time? No one was talking about this in netball, let alone women's sport. And I was just really creative. And so that kind of really piqued my interest in sport and in women's sport and in netball. And I created the Wildcats brand and was really innovative in the kind of experience. But alongside all of this, I then fell pregnant with baby number 4. And she was born with a heart tumor. And there is nothing like being faced with your own child's mortality to make some hard and fast decisions. And for me, I couldn't go into an office every day and leave 2 children under 18 months, one with a heart tumor, 4 kids under 10. So I started my own business. And that business is very much kind of marketing, PR, business advice, strategy. And I picked up one of my first clients was Netball Scotland, who had worked with me on the Wildcats, who'd worked with me on the preparation for the Commonwealth Games. They had a new CEO come in who had a vision for the sport. She wasn't just like, we're only this, so that's how we operate. She was like, I believe in it, but I don't quite know how to realize some of these ambitions. So I worked with them and I rebranded them and I got us a BBC documentary and I brought commercial partners in. And working with her, I started going to industry events where women's sport was not talked about, or it was an extra 2-hour add-on at a conference in a separate room. And this is like social media, there was only Twitter, and people were like, who's the girl talking about women's sport in the back of the room, challenging everyone? And I realized that I was really passionate about this, but I had a skill set that didn't seem to be in women's sport. And it was a business marketing head. I talked about the commercialization and the commercial potential of women's sport. So women's sport was and still is largely really ran by the volunteers who make it happen as a sport. So coaches and players and managers. Men's sport is a business, and those deals were being done on golf courses or in the hospitality suites at major events. And I was like, women's sport needs to be run like a business. So I picked up that client. I did various other things. I even did a global role for a bit in technology and was sitting in Coke headquarters in the States doing $40 million deals. But when the opportunity to be the chief exec of Netball Scotland came up, I knew that that was where I had to be. And I knew that even that the salary wasn't there and the challenge was going to be huge, that I had to put my money where my mouth is. And so in 2015, I became the chief exec of Netball Scotland. We re-tendered to rejoin the Super League, and I bought in Sirens in 2017. I secured £350,000 worth of cash sponsorship, which was not being done in any women's sport, any in the UK. Red Bull worked with me before any other team sport in the UK. We created new brand campaigns, marketing campaigns. And our first ever game on a wet Tuesday night in Glasgow, I had 4,000 people in an arena watching what we were doing. I've always believed that world class is a mindset. I've always believed in the power of storytelling to build audiences. And here we are over a decade later. I'm now running the Super League and as passionate as ever. The challenge is the same, but bigger. As much as women's sport is moving forward, the checks are still slow to be written. It's still an environment that is dominated the broadcast deals. You have to wait until you see what happens with the Premier League football and other big properties. But we're making huge progress. And someone had said to me those kind of 10, 12, 14 years ago, when I was just trying to convince people that women as a sports fan was a concept to be taken seriously. And here I am talking about filling the O2 and every game broadcast across Sky and BBC, and working with huge brands like Amex and Nike and inspiring hundreds of thousands of women and girls. I would have bitten your hand off to be part of that. So it's not been a linear journey. And in all of that, I live in Scotland and I'm a single parent, and my logistics of trying to work in England, it's a lot, but I wouldn't change it for the world because it's an absolute privilege to do this. And the day that I don't feel like that is the day that it's time to pass the baton on to somebody else.
Yeah. Wow, what a story, what a journey. And you really know your storytelling as well. I was captivated there by your story. And I like how you've told, when someone have been through a lot of bad things, sometimes you can either, fall into a bad path or you're turning it into something positive. And it really seems like you have done the latter and used all of this to now putting everything into yourself, your career, and into netball for sure.
Thank you.
Really, really inspiring. And on that note as well, there are a lot of young people listening. What would be some advice that you have for someone who wants to work in the sports industry?
It's tough, but I think any advice that I give to women and girls, it's always the same. And it would be the same about working in this industry. You've got to back yourself. Our entire experience of the world exists within us. So, there are characters that are part of our journey and our story. Some of them are really important, our children, our parents, our partners, but ultimately how we experience the world and the quality of that experience exists within us. And it's how we think, feel, and behave. And so we have to back ourselves. We have to feel the fear and do it anyway. We have to know our own power. And when people ask me, how are you the way you are? I have no idea, because the environment that I grew up was really a bullying father and a very submissive mother, and no one chose us and no one encouraged us and no one supported us. We all have that innate in us where we know we're good and we know we're enough, but external noise dims that. And right now, I think it's never been harder to be a young person, let alone a woman and girl, but a young person right now looking at the world through social media. It's really difficult. And you would be forgiven for going, I'm not good enough, or I'm not achieving things, or I'm not what I should be. And know that if we want to live a life of peace, joy, and happiness and our own fulfillment, that it has to be on our own terms and we have to be our own cheerleaders. So looking at an industry, I have worked in hospitality, I've worked in technology, and I now work in sport. These are all male-dominated environments. In technology, I was going to C-suite boardrooms in my early 30s in pink heels and a pink lipstick. And people would think that I was there to kind of make the tea and support, because I worked very closely with my boss, who was an older white male. And he was like, no, you're here to speak to Claire. And when I opened my mouth and I knew my stuff, then it didn't matter what I looked like, what my gender was. People did business with me and did deals with me. So it feels really scary to be authentically yourself in rooms that are not made for you and in a system that's not there. But back yourself, because when women and girls, when we back ourselves and we take those steps into the boardroom or the executive room on a field of play or off it, and we contribute to that, that's part of driving change. So I really believe in confidence and self-esteem. And I also say as well, be brave and take a risk. Like, put yourself out there and don't wait for permission, because sometimes the jobs aren't there, but go. And I've literally talked my way into and hustled my way into every job I've ever had. And then I'm like, okay, let's figure it out and be really good at it. But you don't need to wait for a title or a role or a pay rise to be the person that you're capable of, or to share your ideas. Just go and put yourself out there. And if you want to be seen, write the blogs on LinkedIn. I love it when people slide into my DMs and go, I've got an idea. Can you help me? I'm here for helping as many people as possible. But all of that takes that little thread of just a bit of self-confidence, and use your voice, even if it's shaking. It's okay. As you pointed out, even the worst things, they always make you stronger or wiser on the other side. And every road bump or every failure takes you closer to success. Success isn't an overnight thing. So I always celebrate that uncomfortable feeling, because I'm pushing myself. I'm doing something new. I'm out my comfort zone, and whatever happens, I'm going to be stronger, wiser at the other end of this. And so I think embracing that feeling, put yourself out there. Don't be afraid to ask, do the groundwork, and have belief in yourself, because no one else is going to be that cheerleader for you if you can't do it for yourself.
Definitely. I love that so much. I think that's great. So the listeners can go back and snip out that 3-4 minutes and listen to that again, because I think that was great.
Your day listening to that every single day.
Exactly. So I'd like to end on a networking question. You mentioned sliding into DMs and reaching out, and this is how I get guests for this podcast. Reaching out, trying to build a network. So who from your network do you think would be a good guest on this show?
I mean, I know lots of people that have all got very interesting stories. I definitely think Maggie Murphy is amazing. Have you spoken to her before?
I have not, but she's so high up on my list. I would love to have her on.
She's just a really good egg and she's a real person. But what she did at Lewis FC was remarkable. But she also has a very real story of how tough that is. And I think I'm always keen to do is be authentic and honest, that working as a woman in sport and as a woman in women's sport right now, it's pretty brutal, and for the same challenges of how we're trying to change the game in terms of building fandom and the pressures faced by women. Well, they're faced by us as well, trying to drive this. And it can be tough at times. And she talks quite honestly about how tough that is. But she's absolutely brilliant. And then obviously what she's gone on to do now with Villa and what she's building. And she's just a lovely human. So she's definitely somebody that I personally would love to hear more from. And I think has a great story to tell.
Definitely. I would love that. So great suggestion for sure. Claire, thank you so much for taking the time to join Sports Management Podcast. It's been a blast.
Loved it. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Sports Management Podcast. Please hit the follow or subscribe button on your podcast app so you don't miss out on any upcoming episodes. If you want to get in contact with me, send an email to sportsmpodcast@gmail.com, connect with me on LinkedIn, or follow the podcast on Instagram, X, and Facebook @SportsMPodcast.